to say about Eric Adams, he did one thing no other New York City mayor has ever done. He made Bill de Blasio look good. So there's talk that Mayor Adams might become our next ambassador to Saudi Arabia, which that would be good for Trump, finally, and Eric he can be proud of, representing him.
Watching him play to his base that thinks that he cares about them, and it's actually the people that he cares about the least. If you're talking about his core being, you know, a majority white middle class, what I don't understand is how in do you feel like you relate to a billionaire who has never known struggle his entire life?
Trump's attempt to defend himself against Eminem and Jimmy Kimmel is akin to a paper tiger meandering through a wind tunnel. 1. Analyzes him with sardonic accuracy. Lyrical napalm is unloaded by the other until only smoking ego confetti remains. Kimmel makes fun of the conceit. Together, they eliminate any appearance of skill, and Eminem destroys the bluster. It's a demolition, not a discussion. Instead of roasting him, they burn him till nothing remains but the sound of laughter that is louder than a rallying cry.
Videos lately. Our governor, Gavin Newsom, has been roasting him online, and so now Trump is doubling up. Last night, he posted a whole string of deep fakes, including these.
Hey, look at this! Donald Trump! Donald Trump! It's happened! Oh, my God! The hostile takeover of Donald Trump!
I mean, that's what he was meant to do, repost videos with his head pasted on a man whose thighs don't rub together when he wears shorts.
Start talking about Trump, I get too flustered in my head, and the shit that I want to say, there's too many things I want to say at once. So sometimes I start talking and I'm not able to convey the message the right way because I just get flustered and frustrated.
Please click the bell symbol and subscribe to the channel if you like this video. Kimmel begins by attacking Trump's incessant need for approval, treating each rally and stage picture opportunity as though it were a wash-up artist's open mic night. He presents the presidency as a desperate audition, where the main character is still looking for motivation, and the script is changed every day, rather than as a job. With each iteration of a catchphrase and each inflated declaration of triumph, Kimmel becomes a setup for derision that is executed with accuracy. He demonstrates how a man who is so consumed by love is constantly plagued by the knowledge that he is not valued.
Trump was at the Ryder Cup over the weekend, which kind of explains this caveman-like behavior. The president has been hard at work coming up with all sorts of nonsense to distract us from the Epstein files, including, I don't know if you saw this, but he made a major announcement. I am ordering my administration to declassify and release all government records related to Amelia Earhart, her final trip and everything else about her. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Trump's contradictions are transformed into bars of mockery by Eminem, who takes that vulnerability and sets it on fire. He attacks the incoherence of plans that change every day, the constant digressions into self-promotion that turn official speeches into advertisements for Trump's brand, and the stream of half-formed boasts masquerading as policy. The entire show is transformed into rhyme and rhythm by Eminem. Trump has spent his life constructing a fragile glass palace of ego, but each line is another wrecking ball that destroys it. The mistakes seem even more pitiful due to the rap rhythm alone, which makes them sound like rhyming footnotes in the failed narrative.
Agent Orange sending a Secret Service to your house. Did the Secret Service really come to your house after that?
They came to my studio, yeah.
Okay.
And they were just basically asking me questions about my lyrics to see what the intent was behind them, and if I was making a actual threat. I got backlash for the Trump cipher. At least when this is all said and done, maybe I can just be on the right side of history.
Kimmel focuses on Trump's ridiculous fixation with ratings, making fun of the way he gauges success based on airtime and crowd sizes rather than accomplishments. Whenever a man insists on being the biggest person in the room, he ultimately ends up being smaller. Kimmel portrays the president as someone who treats the Oval Office like a green room before a late-night show, who is more focused in Nielsen scores than national security. The jokes reveal the truth of a leader who conflates visibility with vision, and they don't only hurt.
He's releasing the Earhart file. At least he made it to the E's in the files. That's progress. Tomorrow we release the Ebert files. We will finally get to the bottom of what happened to Siskel. Meanwhile, Vice President Maybelline was making the rounds, attempting to defend his boss and the chairman of the FCC with a new fairy tale even a 5-year-old wouldn't believe.
By highlighting the duplicity and reminding everyone that Trump's incessant assertions of toughness crumbled at the first hint of opposition, Eminem sharpens the blade. He likens the swagger to an actor who stumbles into unpopular improvisation in the middle of a scene and forgets his lines, but demands a standing ovation nevertheless. Eminem uses his frailty as a weapon, turning the appearance of power into a comic routine through a lyrical takedown. In his hands, what was once portrayed as dominance appears to be farce.
The thing that pissed me off the most, the Kaepernick thing. And when that happened and how he kept changing the narrative and kept changing the narrative. Like really? Nike supports people who kneel for the anthem. At this point, seriously, you gotta be a moron to think that that's just what it's about and it's that fucking cut and dry. There's a meaning behind this and there's real pain behind this. And you're burning a pair of shoes?
Kimmel breaks down the rally mania by outlining the never-ending cycle of rehashed slogans that pass as political therapy sessions. He draws attention to the ridiculousness of a president continuing to perform the same greatest hits from years past, much like a band that won't put out new music because their audience only applaud their older songs. As if shouting the same line louder and longer is the only way to counteract declining popularity. He demonstrates how repetition is tranquilizing a country rather than motivating it. It isn't governing. It's a declining residency act. Eminem goes one step farther by criticizing the illusion of grandeur and making fun of the constant self-comparisons to visionaries and historical leaders. He makes a poem out of every moment of self-congratulation, plan that highlights the discrepancy between reality and dream. Eminem portrays Trump as a historical costume department pretender, struggling through the part while insisting that the reviewers label it a masterpiece. Kimmel demonstrates how the display of affluence conceals the absence of content, how the rot underneath cannot be concealed by the gleam of gold. The alleged empire seemed more like a garish set piece crumbling under stage lights than a victory.
Celebrities are rallying to his cause, saying this is a First Amendment assault being carried out by the FCC, Brendan Carr, and by the President of the United States himself. And to that, you say?
Well, there are two things. First of all, I'd like them to tell me exactly what Brendan Carr did to have Jimmy Kimmel taken off the air, because number one, he is currently on the air, and to the extent that he isn't in certain stations, it's because he's not funny and because his ratings aren't very good.
I have some good news for you, J-Dog. We're back on all the stations.
By cutting down the false myth of being a genius, Eminem increases the exposure. Strategist. He draws attention to the inconsistencies, the careless choices passed off as daring maneuvers, and the improvisations that fall apart more quickly than they are revealed by using rapid-fire bars. The so-called plan, according to Eminem, is a freestyle gone awry in which every syllable contradicts the one before it, and the only people still applauding are those who are too engaged to acknowledge that it's a complete failure. There is no question about the lyrical venom. Checkers is played poorly here. Chess is not played. Kimmel mocks the never-ending justifications and shifting of blame, demonstrating how Trump never passes up the opportunity to place the blame on anyone other than himself. He makes fun of the pattern's predictability by turning every controversy into a repeat of the same old show. Distract, deflect, and deny. Eminem lashes out at the phony devotion, reminding everyone that wearing red, white, and blue doesn't imply that you genuinely care about the individuals those colors symbolize. Kimmel challenges the notion of intellect by pointing out how illogical digressions and meandering remarks are masqueraded as genius. He makes fun of the way every error is presented as deliberate, the way volume takes the place of reason, and the way repetition is treated as profundity. Kimmel shows that the emperor's wisdom is as non-existent as his clothing by turning every speech blunder into a hilarious moment. The most basic jokes shatter the idea of genius, and the ensuing laughter is ruthless. Eminem criticizes the loyalty tests by contrasting the revolving door of abandoned allies to a reality show with constantly shifting rules. He writes fast-paced lyrics about the constant firings, betrayals, and sycophants vying for attention, all of which revolve around a single frail ego. By depicting Trump's presidency as a circus where the ringmaster keeps stumbling over his own show, Kimmel parodies the turmoil itself. He mocks the incessant inconsistencies, clumsy declarations, retractions, and denials that make every news cycle into a confusing circus. Kimmel makes the ridiculousness very evident. Governance does not include this. Clown school gone haywire. The reason for the laughter is not that it's humorous, but rather that it's too ridiculous to handle in any other way.
That's what he was meant to do, repost videos with his head pasted on a man whose thighs don't rub together when he wears shorts. Have you been following this Cracker Barrel logo saga? This happened while we were off. For about 12 hours, Cracker Barrel had a new logo. They changed it from this, the old logo, to this, and for whatever reason, the MAGA mouth breathers were madder than, I don't know, they were madder than when the Lady Ghostbusters showed up. There was so much outrage online.
The intensity with which Eminem closes the curtain doesn't simply make fun of Trump. It undermines his presidency. His style destroys all remaining dignity, exposing a leader whose greatest historical contribution may be demonstrating how low the standard for authority can fall when bluster is confused with intelligence. The story is reshaped from a great legacy to a sarcastic warning for generations, as each bar strikes like a hammer. Never let entertainment pass for leadership, and don't mistake haughtiness for skill. Kimmel takes that thread and pulls it until it breaks, depicting Trump's tenure in office as more of a circus act that lasted too long than a chapter of administration. He depicts the presidency as a never-ending reality show, with the exception that the aftermath and stakes weren't fabricated. There were actual repercussions on this worldwide stage. However, Trump handled it as if it were a prop movie, where every day drew praise and every error was framed as a stroke of brilliance. Not all of the rhymes are jokes. They would be brutally honest, exposing scandals, errors, and inconsistencies that could not be covered up by any amount of spin. The audience is reminded that history will not change with time as each stanza slams the door on redemption. Bloopers cannot be removed. Loud and humiliating, they are inscribed on the record like graffiti on the walls of power.
And if you're in his base, you're a core, let's say you're going to the rallies or whatever, you watch him on TV, you hear him talking this shit, there's part of me that understands, like, all right, he's somehow still got them because he's brainwashing them into thinking that something great is gonna happen. Nothing's happening. Nothing is happening. I don't know, man.
With surgical precision, Kimmel expands on it by analyzing Trump's persona. Designed. He makes the self-proclaimed strongman into a farcical figure who fell more often than he strode, yelled louder than he intended to, and mistook intransigence for knowledge. Since the basic material is already so absurd, the roast doesn't require any dramatization. Kimmel only needs to hold up the mirror for the reflection to give its own joke, a hideous counterfeit of statesmanship that, when examined closely, devolves into farce. That contemplation is turned into rhythm in Eminem's fury, which rhymes mayhem with humor. He paints a picture of a leader playing with history like a toy and flinging responsibility around like it were optional. His bars portray a hype man engrossed with his own performance, incapable of distinguishing between personal gain and the good of the country, rather than a commander-in-chief. Each sentence erodes the facade until, at the end, what's left is a hollow persona who confused theatrics for truth and noise for power rather than a titan of politics. When those illusions are dispelled, the emperor's nakedness becomes not only apparent, but also comical. Additionally, the audience laughs not only at the website, but also at the utter foolishness of attempting to pass it off as something else.
About the Cracker Barrel guy. So mad, in fact, Cracker Barrel caved and agreed to bring back MAGA's second favorite old orange white guy, which is the Cracker Barrel guy. So congratulations, you cost your favorite restaurant millions of dollars in dumb. But I'm sure Don Jr. will be eating a lot more hash brown pie at the old Cracker Barrel to celebrate. That's right. This
Eminem connects everything by depicting the heritage as something irreparable. The audience is reminded by the line's sense of permanence that once a disaster is documented in history, it cannot be altered to its advantage. He creates an unskippable tune on the record, a song that nobody requested, but that everyone remembers due to its oddball quality. The finality is emphasized by the pace. Leadership was not demonstrated here. The credits rolled long before the performer realized the live-action parody was done. By portraying the ruins as a humorous treasure rather than a sorrowful event, Kimmel makes sure the ending hits home. He presents the breakdown as amusement, worth, evidence that laughter is the only sensible reaction when reality devolves too much into absurdity. His rhymes do more than only critique. They capture the mistakes in rhythm and cadence so that listeners will remember them as a chorus. It goes beyond simple commentary.